Hi, guys. Welcome back to the brand new series called The 7 Essentials to Transform Your Life with Melissa Malati and Barun Garain. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, I hope that you're having the most spectacular day, and we are so excited to bring you the next episode in our mini series. And this episode is entitled Mindful Eating. Ooh, so many interesting points to touch on today. But before we jump into it, I'm going to go ahead and let Barun introduce our series as a whole. Some of the things we've previously touched on, just in case you're a brand new viewer and you haven't watched any of the videos in our series so far. He will touch on some of the things that we have already talked about and then introduce today's topic. So, Barun, take it away.
Well, thanks, Melissa. Really enjoying the sunshine today after a couple of days of, clouds and snow. And
Same.
so, so it's a beautiful day. So anyway, it's a great day to talk about mindful eating. Well, our episode is all about 7 essentials, which I call 7I, which is all about connecting to 7 essentials that are fundamental to human living. And the reason I'm trying to do all these is because there are various aspects of health issues, stress, depression, all kinds of emotional stuff all across the world. And I find that unless you connect with these 7 essentials, it is very, very difficult to get out of this mess. So these 7 essentials, even though they are on its own quite important, but they're not fragmented by any means. So, the number one essential that we discussed in our first episode was breathing life, because breathing life is probably the most important aspect of our life. Without breath, we won't even live for a few minutes. The second aspect we talked about was optimum hydration, which means that how to optimize the hydration of your body so that the body is working at its peak. Very, very important, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So, with these two things, and we have to realize that these two almost gives us 80% of the energy that we need. It's not the food, it's actually the breathing life and hydration, which is by water, the right kind of water. So, we also talked about the right kind of water and how to make sure that we have structured water and to optimize the hydration in our body. And then we talked about the cosmic energy, which is really the energy that's coming from the sunshine. And today is beautiful, outside, and it's wonderful. So, sunlight, Earth's energy, because the frequency of the Earth is what gives us the optimum health. So, if you can connect with the Earth, it's essentially connecting with the frequency of the Earth, which is 7 to 8 hertz. And it's not just the sunlight and the Earth's energy. We also have moon, we have planets. So they all actually make an impact on our life, on our living. So it's very, very important that we connect with these three important essentials. So the fourth essential is mindful eating. And this is what we'll talk about today. And one thing I like to emphasize that the reason I'm doing all this, discussing all the 7 essentials, is to really focus on one point, really one really important aspect of life, which is to stop the chattering of the mind. So what's happening is that we are in this pattern where we have our thoughts, which comes from our memories, and the thoughts leads to emotions, and from the emotions we take actions or inactions, whatever it is, and then it becomes our experience, it goes back into the memory, and it becomes thought, emotion. So this cycle is actually quite problematic, and this is leading to all kinds of stress and depression and all kinds of health issues. So each of these essential that I'm talking about is all about how to break this cycle completely. In fact, each of these essential have the potential to do that. But I'm talking about 7 essentials, which will make it very easier, because if we can implement all these on our day-to-day living, so that you don't have to sit down for half an hour to meditate, and that's not going to help us at all. Why not bring these essentials into every single moment of our life? And that's the intent of this book, is to make sure that we bring them in our life on a daily basis and get the most value out of it. So today, Melissa will talk about mindful eating.
I'm excited. And also, I just want to let everyone know that's listening that we are basing each episode off of a chapter from Barun's awesome book, literally called the same thing as our title, The Seven Essentials to Transform Your Life. So when Barun was referring to his book, this is what he's talking about. We're going to leave the link to purchasing it on Amazon in the description box for this video. And yeah, it's as easy as that. But okay, cool. So let's jump right into it. So, mindful eating. So, first off, let's just discuss what it means to be mindful, okay? Let's discuss what mindful eating means, the definition of that, just so everyone gets an idea as we jump into the many topics within this area.
Yes, I think mindful eating is all about being conscious, being aware of the food that we have on a daily basis, just to be completely aware. Now, it's not just the taste and how you feel about it, it's all about connecting with the food itself.
Right.
Means where is the food coming from, and what is the food that we're eating, and how do we connect with the food we're actually eating. The process of eating is
Right.
mindful eating. It's not the food by itself, it's the
Right.
process of eating. So that's where mindful eating plays a very important role, because it's not just about the food, it's about the eating process. And in my book, I talked about disciplined eating and all kinds of other aspects to
Right.
bring this into a lifestyle. So mindful eating is all about being conscious about the food, and to make sure that we get the most value out of the food.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. So let's first just touch on something that I think across the board we can agree that our society is obsessed with: diets. We're all very we're I maybe not obsessed, but certainly I would say people are very interested in trying the new diet or the new fad. And with that, there just seems to be so much research and people are so confused. Now, in the interest of talking about mindful eating, what are your thoughts on this, on diets?
Yes, it is quite interesting that there's so many diets around, starting from raw vegan to vegetarianism to, keto and paleo, all the way to carno,
Mm,
100% carno diet. So the reason why we have all these diets is because people are confused about eating. They want
yes.
to know what's the quick fix or best fix for them. Obviously, there's a health problem going on. There's a health issue. It's not just the physical issue, it's just mental and emotional. So it's a health which combines all these three different aspects. So obviously there's a health issue going on and people are looking for solutions.
Mm,
So my impression is that all these diets are definitely helpful for some people, no doubt about that. They have their own place. But eventually they are missing out the point that there's something else, which is what is the fundamentals of eating.
mm,
If we don't understand the fundamentals of eating, we will it will be very difficult for people to really know what is the right diet, for us. And I think that's where the confusion is. Despite all the diets that we have all across the world, still, people are confused about what's the right food for us.
mhm.
Now it's interesting that I used to take my children to the High Park Zoo, and there'll be beautiful llamas there, and the children will be feeding them grass and leaves from the trees around.
Hmm.
And what I found that the llamas knew exactly what to eat. If the
Mm,
children gives them certain leaves, they would not eat. The interesting part was that when kids will be mixing up the leaves, the good and the bad ones for the llama, and the llama will reject the one. They will know straight away which leaves to eat, which one not to eat, straight away, while they're feeding on the mouth.
wow.
So it is very interesting that even llamas and other species, probably all species, probably know what is the right diet and they stick to it. Whereas in the case of humans, I think we have forgotten what is the right diet, and I think that's where the confusion is.
Do you think it's because we're just a little out of touch as to what we truly need? Like perhaps we've just been so distracted by and being told that this is right or this is right and we should eat this and this is good, as opposed to, really just tuning in and listening to what our body says, because I'm sure we have a specific diet as well, possibly.
Mm.
I mean, it depends, right? Because do you believe in the theory that we should eat for our blood type or eat from for where we come from in the world? Do you agree with those ideas?
Yes, I think so. I think
Mm,
it's very important to be able to understand your own uh, body and see what's the right diet for you.
right.
And that comes from experimentation. So I would not switch to a completely new diet straight away. I think we should stick to your traditional diet to start with,
Hmm.
and then start improving, build on it, not just switch completely to veganism or vegetarianism only to find yourself into a trap where you can have all kinds of issues. So this is where I find a lot of people have problems and they switch to veganism or vegetarianism or some other diet like keto diet or paleo diet without understanding the fundamentals. So I think it's very important to know yourself first. So awareness actually is the most important thing, and
Hmm.
that has been my focus. That has been the focus of the book,
Yeah,
to be
absolutely, it has.
aware of
Hmm.
of everything that goes around you, including your food that you eat.
Hmm.
So
Very
without this
cool.
awareness, I think it will be very difficult for you to hear somebody and uh, and fix yourself. I think this is where I find the actual issue going on, not to be
Hmm.
aware.
When I was first kind of learning about this concept of mindful eating, I would pick up, whatever I was eating, and I would feel if it felt right for me.
Mm.
And if it did, then I would eat it. And if it didn't, then I wouldn't. And I did find that my body reacted well to that. It's very interesting. And then I heard this. Well, I didn't even hear this it's not like a concept, but I remembered from when I was a child, the world was much different. I'm 30. It's not like I'm not that old, but when I was, 0 to 10, in between those years, people were more religious than they are now. And certainly my family was. And we would go to church and we would practice the ideals from the church and we would say grace before meals. And so that was a big practice for me. And then over the years, I forgot about it. And then when I was thinking about it and I remembered, I started saying grace before I would eat. And I would notice that when I would say grace and I would truly get into that attitude of gratitude before eating, I don't know if it would change the structure of the food or because my mindset was in like a higher frequency, perhaps I was able to digest the food better, but I just noticed that I felt good after eating my meals. Is that something that you've heard of or that you've researched on or that you practice?
Yes, I think I practice that for sure. And what I find that all traditional cultures
Mm-hmm.
had this, tradition at home that when at the dinner time, everybody's on the table, and they are praying or doing something which is really focusing your attention on the food. You look at the food, gratitude or you pay respect, or
Mm-hmm.
prayers. So all these things are all about connecting with the food.
Yeah.
And we talked about water last time, right?
Yes.
And we discussed that water is very conscious, and all foods, including us, are water.
Hmm.
Essentially, so when you have the right kind of thoughts and gratitude, and you mentioned about Dr. Emoto's research on structured water
Yes.
and how our thinking patterns can actually change the structure of the water,
Hmm.
which is a real thing. I know a lot of people don't believe it. As a scientist, I know this is real.
Yeah. I
And
believe it. I've seen pictures, I've seen evidence.
yeah,
It definitely is real.
it is. And
Yeah.
I felt that myself. So
Hmm.
that's the reason why when different cultures will be sitting together as a family and the focusing on the food, essentially you are changing the vibration or making the water more structured, in
Hmm.
the food and also yourself as well. So
Hmm.
I think that connection is very important. That's why I feel that it's not just about the diet or the kind of food you eat. I think I think the more important is actually the way you eat. That is
Right.
actually very important. The way you eat and how you connect with the food. I think they are really critical, more important than the kind
Mm.
of food you eat. I think that's also important. You don't want to eat poison, or eat something junk or having toxins in there. So you have to pay attention to that, no doubt. But I think the primary importance is to make sure you connect with the food. Make
Mm.
sure that without that connection, I feel that you are losing out on various other aspects of what food can provide to you.
Cool. And can we talk about different ways that we can make the connection? So obviously I just said you could say grace before meals, you could feel out the energy. Are there any other, I don't know, fun games that you could play to connect with your food? Have you noticed?
Yes, I think different cultures do things differently. And sometimes I really like the cultures where everybody has to close their eyes and all the food is covered, you do not know. And everybody's guessing, you go around the table and guessing, oh, today I think from the smell, oh yeah, I can feel it's maybe it's a preparation of certain bread, maybe bread
Okay.
with rosemary, or maybe, looks like some kind of a tomato dish, maybe
Mm,
pasta.
mm,
Some might say, "Oh, beautiful smells of basmati rice." Some
yeah.
say, "Oh, must be some spicy food there." So people are guessing, around the table, and then finally open the and see, who actually won, kind of thing. This is fun.
That is fun. I want to do that. You also just
Yes.
made me extremely hungry naming off rosemary bread and all delicious pasta. Yum, I'm starving. That's awesome. Okay, very very interesting. So, okay, so let's kind of scale back and talk about in your book you discuss disciplined eating. So what does that mean?
Yes, I think the fundamentals of eating is probably really critical to our success with mindful eating.
Mhm.
So the first very important principle is eat only when you're hungry. I know it's a very difficult thing to do for most people, but people, you get used to it. There was a time when I used to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, every single, and there's snacks in between
Mhm.
for how many years? 10, 20 years. And when I switched to eating 2 times a day and now basically once a day, and sometimes twice a day, but skip the breakfast completely. So I don't feel that, yes, I'm hungry, but I enjoy that hunger. I
Do
want to,
you?
I feel that I enjoy that hunger for a little while, of course, not for, you know, actually, today is my third day of water fasting. And
Stop.
I haven't eaten for 3 days, and I feel great.
Oh my
So
gosh. Is this just is it like you're just trying this on your own or are there other people doing it with you?
yes, there's a group who does it, and I'm actually part of that group.
Whoa.
And interestingly, that I've just done this in October as well. October was for a special reason because I do that in October. There's a special festival that happens,
Oh,
part of my tradition, and I focus on that.
cool.
So anyway, so this was for a different reason. This is because of this conjunction of these two planets, Jupiter and Saturn. They're aligning on the 21st of December. So
That's
that's a
right.
big day.
I
It's
remember you
happening.
telling me this. Yeah.
Yes, it's happening after 800 years. It's a big deal. It's a big
Mm,
deal. You can see the Jupiter actually on the southern west sky. And I think this week is very important from the 14th to the 21st. I feel it's a
mm.
very important time of the year. And also 21st is solstice, winter solstice.
Yule. That's right.
Yes, exactly. So, and also it's a solar eclipse on that day, which is, oh my goodness, so many things are happening on the same day.
Staying inside on that day.
What's going on there? What's going on there? So
Wow.
it's a way to connect with we talked about cosmic energy. It's about
Yeah.
connecting with, every day I'm going to see, whenever the sun sets, you can actually see Jupiter and Saturn, if you're lucky.
Really? I didn't know
Uh,
you could see it right now. I didn't know that it was visible right now. I knew it was
to-
visible in the summertime, but I didn't know that it was still visible right now. I thought,
Today, it's a beautiful day, and you can see the Jupiter. If you're
wow.
lucky, if you see at the southern west sky, if you can from your place, I think
Hmm.
you're probably open, right, on your southern side. You're close to the lake.
Yes, I am. Yeah. I have a view of the southern west for sure.
Yeah, try maybe after 5 p.m. today, but before 7 p.m. though, because it sets at 7:29. Actually, there's an app there which I look at. It talks about all the planets.
Ooh.
It's called Star Walk 2. Uh,
Walk to?
Essentially, the app can tell you uh, where the where the planet is,
Oh,
and
cool.
it's very interesting.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Star walk through
Two,
or two? Walk
number
two.
two, yeah,
Oh, number two. Star walk
yeah.
two. Interesting. Okay.
Or it has got something called Sky Live, and actually see the sky and see all the different planetary and constellations and all kinds of stuff. You know.
Cool. So I knew this was happening because I remember you telling me about this last week, but I didn't realize that fasting is something that you should consider when energies are high. You're saying that that's why you're doing the fast because you're because energies are really high and you feel that it can somehow just sort of help you get in alignment. Sorry,
Yes.
explain that more, that because that's so
Okay.
interesting to
So
me.
the reason I mentioned about fasting is because the first principle I talked about, eat only
Mm,
when you're hungry.
yep.
Now there is something to it as well. When you're hungry, your body is not working hard to digest the food, right?
Hmm.
So the body is doing all kinds of other repair mechanisms in the system, right? And also there's enough energy for you to focus on things that really important to you. So to really connect with somebody, or to really connect with something bigger than yourself,
Hmm.
it is very important to make sure that you have enough energy. So I think that's when you're fasting. So that, because I know that on the 21st of December we have something major happening across the globe, and I feel that when I'm hungry, when I don't have food to worry about, or I'm not digesting the food, I can spend a lot of my energy, trying to connect with the events happening around you.
Hmm.
So that was the intention. That's my intention, is to see how I can connect with something bigger than myself. In this case, the Jupiter and the Saturn and everything going around me.
Wow.
And I think that's what fasting helps you. So that's why in most traditions, you'll see they do fasting on certain occasions, and it intensifies their connection with whatever some people say is God or
Hmm.
intelligence or whatever. So it's essentially help you to connect with something bigger than yourself that you really want to connect with. So otherwise, when you are stuffed with food, it is very difficult to even think about something beyond yourself. You become a little bit selfish, I feel. So that's the reason why fasting is so important. And it
Wow.
starts from starting with hunger, trying to understand the feeling of hunger. Nowadays I feel most people don't even know what is thirst and hunger, because all the time we are eating, 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 eating.
Yeah.
you know
I don't know the difference. I actually try really hard to figure out the difference, and every so often when I take a sip of water, I'm like I clue into, oh, I was just really thirsty right now, and I'm like, yes, win for Melissa for today. But it is very difficult to kind of understand the difference, to be honest, because we're
Yes.
not really taught to do that.
Mm.
I don't think it's like a societal norm to really tune in that way. And yeah, and we're just, especially in Canada, I think we were touching on this before, but um, Canada, people seem to really live to eat instead of to eat to live. That's very much plugged into sort of our culture as a whole. So, yeah, I think these things like that is forgotten for sure.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere. I think
Yeah,
everywhere I
yeah,
find the same
probably.
issue. I think
Yeah.
most people, because eating is such a thing, because we have so many troubles across us. We have
Mm,
no control on your thoughts and emotions and our energies. It becomes very difficult sometimes to really enjoy life. So food is one of the little things that we can eat to enjoy,
mm,
and gives us a little bit of pleasure, I guess. So I think that's the reason. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that
yeah.
you're just limiting yourself by doing that. It's nothing wrong. It's just fine. Enjoy.
Sure. Well, I do practice intermittent fasting. That is something I have been
Okay.
trying for a while now since reading your book, to be honest. I have done it off and on. And I'll do the 16-hour one. Sometimes people just do 12 hours, but I usually try to do 16. And it's not easy all the time because I do wake up hungry a lot. That's
Yes.
just kind of, and so I've been doing it off and on for the last couple of months. And so recently though, I have noticed that I've woken up and I just really need something. So I'll have a little bit of a pomegranate and then I just don't eat until about, well, right now it's 1:47. I'll eat at around 2 o'clock. So yeah, but in the interest of talking about listening to our bodies and kind of tuning in and making a connection and whatnot, I do try to just listen to what my body needs. And if I really need something, then I'll go ahead and just have a bit of a pomegranate or some kind of fruit or something.
Yes, that's
So,
perfectly fine. I think some raw
mhm,
fruits and vegetables is fine. What I
mhm,
find that when you're hungry, just to know whether you're thirsty or hungry, I find that the first thing, for example, if you're really hungry, first thing you try is glass of water,
okay.
and still if you feel hungry, um, then maybe put a little bit of salt and another water, or maybe some kind of a vegetable juice, not fruit juice, vegetable juice, like
Oh,
celery and maybe carrots a little bit, so that, or some other leafy vegetables. So idea is that, let's see what's going on here in the system.
hmm,
So that way you can train your body to really see whether it's hunger. So give first preference to water, some kind
okay.
of, or then to raw vegetables and fruits, like a piece of apple or something, to see how hungry you are. And then after that, you can eat the proper meal if you need to,
Right.
if you need to.
Right. If you
But
don't
the
need
thing
to,
is,
then don't.
yes, otherwise what happens is, oh, the meal is all cooked, I'm not
Mhm.
hungry, but look, I have to eat at 12, so I have to eat.
Yeah.
So that pattern I feel is a problem because,
Mm,
breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner. So see, 7 essentials that I'm talking about is all about breaking that pattern.
mm,
So the number one discipline eating that I'm talking about is eat only when you're hungry, is to actually help you break that pattern. That's the
mm,
main reason. It's
right.
not really to deprive of something, it's really to break that pattern first.
Right. And
And
the
I
number
feel, yeah,
sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, and the number one thing that you talk about in this book is to practice awareness. And when you're aware, you're not in a pattern. You're aware. You're
yes,
consciously living in that moment, presently. Sorry.
yes, exactly, exactly. So that's the first thing, is to make sure, as part of the fundamentals of eating, eat only when you're hungry. And the reason is quite obvious, to break that pattern. And
Mm,
also, when you're hungry, the absorption of nutrition is much, much higher,
mm,
much greater. Body absorbs the nutrition because body is craving for it. So body wants to absorb the nutrition. So you actually get more value from the amount of food you eat.
mm,
So you don't waste your food. When you're not hungry and eating, essentially it's increasing your load in the body. Essentially, essentially you're getting more and more exhausted and tired. You need so much of energy. Now, the other thing is, I find the food also tastes very delicious when you're really hungry. I've seen my children and other children too eating all kinds of great food, highly nutritious food when they're hungry. Otherwise, when they're not hungry, they want to eat, all kinds of stuff, which is
right.
nothing wrong with that. But that's the second principle of eating, is to eat less.
Mm,
Whenever you're trying to eat less. So, for example, if you're eating, say, six bread, or slices of bread or toast, whatever, try maybe two or three next time.
okay.
you know so the mistake that people do is, whenever they have a problem, they switch to a different diet. I think that's a big mistake, to straight away. So what they should do is, first eat only when they're hungry, to break the patterns first,
Hmm.
and then try to eat less of what they're already eating as their diet.
Mm,
For example, if you eat a pizza, don't change that completely. Just say you eat four slices, eat two slices,
right.
and then the next time try one slice. So start eliminating things that doesn't things doesn't suit you or doesn't help you. So that's the process of elimination. So the food is not about what to eat, it's all about what not to eat.
Hmm.
That is the
Sure.
most important thing about food, I found. And I think many people are saying the same thing. I find many researchers are saying the same thing because of their experience. So
Mm,
it's not just about what to eat, it's about what not to eat.
right.
So that's the second point, is eat less. And what I find in this modern world, which is really surprising, Melissa, that 70 to 80% of the people are constipated. And recently I've been talking to some colonists and some hydrotherapists, and the kind of things that they talk about is amazing. People have 20 to 40 pounds of kind of garbage in their system, and it's there
Whoa.
because people do not know how to eliminate with the wrong kinds of food and the habits and stuff like that. I think this is a disgrace. I
Hmm.
think nobody should allow their own holy temple, this body is a temple, to
Hmm.
have so much of garbage. Would you have so much of garbage sitting in your room, in your office? No, but it's there already. Believe me or not, if you have four people in the house, so you've got so much of garbage sitting everywhere,
Wow.
So this is really bothers me. I find that first we have to eliminate the
Hmm.
garbage, and this can only happen when you start having a disciplined eating.
Hmm.
So that's number two. Number three is whatever you're eating now, start changing to more nutritional foods. Change the nutrition value of the food so that whatever you're eating, it has a high density of nutrition in
Hmm.
you. For example, some people, it could be, say somebody's eating, say, white bread. You can just change that to a different kind of bread, which is much more wholesome, I guess, which is whole foods. So start from junk food to whole foods. Slowly change it. Don't change overnight,
Hmm.
because whole foods doesn't necessarily mean they're more healthy. It's just that it has got certain things there which might be more useful. So I think the idea is to change the nutritional value of what you eat, or start adding some other foods that are superfoods and herbs, and that's what I talked about in this chapter, how to introduce superfoods and herbs, along with your own diet.
Yeah, I actually found this part of Barun's book, of this chapter specifically, to be very, very useful. There are tons of different foods, superfoods that he lists in the book. And maybe I'll just get you to touch on one right now. And if anyone is interested in,
Yeah.
what are whole foods and superfoods and whatnot in the book, he lists so many for all of you. So go ahead and tell us maybe one superfood that you think that people should be adding more to their everyday diet slash routine
Yes.
slash food.
So there is a wide range of superfoods, all the way from spirulina to chlorella to cacao to goji berries to schisandra berries to tulsi to ashwagandha to maca. You just name it. There are many, many. But would you eat all of them? No.
Mm-mm.
So first you have to understand, what are these foods. So that's why connection to the food is so important. What's the nutrition value in there? For
Right.
example, if you feel that you are deficient in magnesium, go for raw cacao, chocolate, raw cacao, not chocolate with sugar and milk and stuff like that. Raw cacao.
What?
it,
But it's
it is
so
bitter.
delicious.
It is delicious. Raw cacao is delicious too. I mean, for me it's very delicious, and I find a lot of people also. So anyway, what I find, that if you want to introduce superfoods, start with something basic like fermented foods.
Okay.
And I think every culture has fermented foods, in their home. Why not
Hmm.
start with that? For example, it could be sauerkraut in Europe. I think they have sauerkraut,
In
kimchi in
Germany.
Korea,
Hmm.
Germany as well. uh, and kimchi, for example, in South Korea. Natto is a Japanese, Korean, Chinese. It's a very high in vitamin K2, which is actually very, very important, especially when you're taking vitamin D supplement, you need vitamin K2. And the
Oh,
only few foods that actually have vitamin K2, natto is one of them.
natto. How do you spell that?
Natto. It's
Okay.
actually made from fermented soybean. It doesn't taste very good, smell very good. But you know what? Once you get used to it, you just love it.
Okay. So
Otherwise,
how do you eat that?
you just eat with your food. For example, natto is basically a fermented, could be some kind of beans. It could be soybean but
Oh.
it's fermented soybean, not like soybean. I do never recommend soybean, but fermented soybean is a different story. The
Mm.
fermentation process, the bacteria or whatever comes in the fragmentation,
Mm.
fermentation, it actually
Close.
helps to change the nature, actually reduces some of the deleterious elements, to say, for example, lectins, for example, or some kind of oxalates. So it tends to uh, reduce the impact of those in a big way.
I see.
So that's what I find, that the fermented foods are the easiest one to adopt, because most people know it. And of course you've got kefir or yogurt,
Hmm.
but try to make sure that the it's from milk which is not conventional.
Hmm. Okay.
Because yeah, very important, because make yogurt and kefir from milk, or sometimes you can do from coconut milk as well.
Hmm.
And you can also make water kefir. There are ways to do that. And of course
Oh,
there are kombuchas as well, all kinds of different drinks, fermented drinks, you can bring into your lifestyle.
I
So
see.
fermentation is very important, and I feel that many uh, I think we can start actually eating more fermented foods. That's why itself is going to go a big way. Um,
Right.
and on top of that, what we can do is we can also grow sprouts or do some sproutings. Little sprouts are very good. Like for
Oh,
example, could be sunflower sprouts or broccoli, or some other radish sprouts, and there are different kinds of sprouts that we can actually have, which is really useful.
I
Everywhere.
see. Very cool. Very interesting. And I noticed that I want to just quickly touch on this. You said that you would never recommend soybeans. Now, there's a lot of mixed opinions on soy. And personally, whenever I digest anything soy, I feel disgusting.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it may taste good, it does not, I don't feel good afterwards. So, why, I'm just curious as to why you would never recommend soybeans.
Yes, soybeans are mostly genetically modified,
I see.
and I find that when I have soybean, it leads to all kinds of issues. I mean, there was a time when I started drinking soy milk,
Mm.
and definitely didn't help me at all. Actually, it also increases, it also protein hormone disruptor. It disrupts the hormone too. What I found
Whoa.
from a research, that all kinds of tofu, for example, tofu is
Mm.
I'd not eat the conventional tofu,
Yeah.
uh, but there are some other forms of tofu like nigari tofu. They're good sometimes, but if the soybean is fermented, then actually it becomes very healthy, because soybean has got a lot of nutrition in there,
Oh,
a lot of
okay.
nutrition, good amount of proteins and various other things. But the thing is, once it's fermented, you uh, um, enhance the good stuff and reduces the bad stuff.
I
So that's
see.
why fermented tofu is okay. For example, natto, as mentioned, natto is something else. I remember, I just which we eat at home. It's called tempeh,
Oh, yes, I've heard of that.
tempeh, TEMPH. So tempeh is actually good. It's a fermented, but again, sometimes I feel that you have to know yourself how it's reacting.
Hmm.
So again, the awareness is very important. So there are various fermented foods that we have around, and soybean. I think we have to be careful because it's highly genetically modified, and sometimes they use all kinds of chemicals and pesticides to grow them,
Ah,
including glyphosate and stuff like that, which doesn't look very appealing, especially if you're health conscious and want to really
sure.
improve your lifestyle.
That makes sense. And in your book, you actually go into detail about different kind of toxins and whatnot to avoid. So we're not going to touch on too much on that right now, because I really loved when we talked about making a connection with food. I just kind of want to gear back there and talk about, in your chapter, you talk about possibly growing your own food. And you were just saying you can grow sprouts, you can grow, do the fermentation.
Yes,
I
yes.
would really have to do my research on that because that seems truly difficult in my head, but maybe it's not. I don't really know how to do that. Do you grow your own like tomatoes and whatnot? Do you have your own garden at home?
Uh, used to. I used
Used
to
to?
grow tomatoes. Tomatoes I tend to avoid because it's full of lectins. Uh, uh,
Oh.
so what I do is I take the skin off and sometimes the seeds off,
Hmm.
and you may say there's nothing left in tomato then. But actually, or if you really want to eat tomatoes, you pressure cook it. You actually remove the lectins completely. Not completely,
Oh,
definitely reduce them lectin. So I tend to avoid all nightshade vegetables like
right.
tomatoes and eggplants and sometimes potatoes, bell
Hmm.
peppers and cucumbers and stuff like that. So I try to reduce them to a great extent. So yeah,
Curious,
so
what's in your everyday salad then?
Well, there's so many things in a salad. There's so many greens,
What's
For
your
example,
favorite? Let's see.
my favorite is salad is avocado. It has to be avocado,
Okay.
avocado along with olives, along with some kind of a greens. For example, little could be some baby kale or baby
Okay.
spinach or some kind of a leafy vegetable, but lots of avocados and on top of that macadamia nuts.
Interesting. Because typically I would say my salad is filled with all the nightshade vegetables that you were just speaking of. Like I have tomatoes, peppers, sometimes I throw in onions, sometimes I
Yeah.
throw in pickles because I'm weird like that, and cucumbers. That was another one you listed. But I have noticed that I do get stomach aches sometimes when I have tomatoes. So maybe that is the lectins that you were speaking of.
Could be, everybody reacts in different ways. Some people will be more tolerant to tomatoes and eggplants, but
Hmm.
in my family, I've seen uh,
Ah,
my mother. She was suffering from arthritis, and she recovered 100% from getting rid of all nightshade vegetables. So that
whoa.
happened. So that was a big inspiration for me. And then when I read Dr. Gundry's book, The Plant Paradox, and I said, "Oh my God, this is what I was looking for." The information.
Really?
Yeah, it
The
connected with
plan
me.
paradox. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, The Plant Paradox. So that book echoed with me completely, and boy, he's a wonderful person, and so I feel that just by being aware of some
Mm.
of these, can help you in a big way. For example, you're getting tummy ache eating tomatoes or salad.
Mhm.
You find out. So maybe you start eliminating
Mhm.
tomatoes one day, and maybe it could be bell peppers one day. See how you feel. If you feel better, it means that you are in the right track.
Mm.
So this is all about experimentation, and the body is telling you that something
Yeah.
is not right here.
Yeah. But it
Yeah.
tastes so good. So sometimes sometimes I avoid it, and then sometimes I give in because it is good. But that's what we were also talking about in another episode about balance, right? Like sometimes it's okay to allow yourself to do like everything in moderation, sort of thing. But I love this episode. I love everything that we just talked about because I think the number one takeaway would have to be making a connection with the food
Yes.
and really just being aware, and like you said, tuning in to see what feels right for you and making up your own decisions on what your body needs as opposed to sort of following a diet strictly, and connecting with your food, saying grace, or playing the game that you were talking about. That's so fun, and
Yes.
making food a joyous experience as opposed to, just something that you just do because you have to.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, connection with food is so important. For example, when you're eating the food, I think if you can close your eyes, actually, I feel that technique
Mm.
is very good. If you close your eyes and see, how it tastes, the texture and stuff like that, I think it's beautiful. It
Yeah.
might take a little bit more longer to eat, but the first thing is you're chewing a lot. When you're conscious, you'll chew a lot because you want to feel the taste of the food. So you will chew a lot. The food will digest better. You get all the beautiful
Oh.
salivas and stuff like that in the food, and the food gets digested. So I think that also helps you
Mm.
not to overeat. When you're eating consciously, you cannot overeat because the body will tell you, look, stop now. And
Mm.
my formula is only eat 2/3 of your tummy. Keep 1/3 empty of your tummy because I think it's going to help you in a big way. It gives you more energy than the energy that's required for digesting a fully
Mm.
stuffed tummy. My God, I mean, I feel when I eat too much, I feel sleepy straight away. Feel sleepy.
Absolutely, I know this. It's called the itis. Have you heard of that before?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I've heard that before. And I remember in high school someone told me that and went, "Oh yeah, like I certainly get that. Like I will overeat and then just be exhausted afterwards."
Absolutely,
So,
it's very, very important. And the
yeah.
connection to the food is we have to understand where the food comes from.
Hmm.
And most people may think that food comes from the supermarket, actually.
Hmm.
But that's why I feel that going to the farmers market has helped me a lot, especially with my children.
Hmm.
Both my children, actually, when we used to go to the supermarket, sorry, to the farmers market, not supermarket, farmers market on Saturdays in the weekends, especially on Saturday, it's a big outing for us. In the morning we go out and eat all
Oh.
kinds of stuff, and and connect with the farmers. And in fact, my son got so enthused with this that he actually started doing a you know started working in the farmers market, actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so he got interested into food,
Hmm.
and he eats the healthiest food you can ever imagine. In fact, he teaches us what to eat, what not to eat. In
Wow.
fact, he just ordered this big book, if I can show you.
Yeah.
um, oh gosh, and he's coming here in 21st of December. This book he ordered for us.
Boundless.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
from Ben Greenfield.
Okay.
Boundless: upgrade your brain, optimize your body, and defy aging. It must be a good book. So I browsed through it. So what I'm saying is that it's a very fun way to connect with the food, because everybody can relate to it, even kids going to the
Mm.
farmers market. And in fact, my son actually he's at McGill University in Montreal, and he actually worked for the university farming community,
Cool.
where they spent 6 months while we were having this COVID thing at home. He was in the farm growing vegetables and
Wow.
all kinds of beautiful stuff. So I feel that this connection with the food is very important.
Mm.
uh, Talking to the farmers, asking the questions. Sometimes the farmers invite you, come to my farm, pick up your strawberries, or now apples and pears. It's beautiful,
Wow.
right?
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to go to the farm. How fun. I went to a lavender farm in the summertime and I just felt so grounded and connected. And I
Yes.
just felt like, oh man, that this is where I need to be. I need to be on the farm. So that's awesome. And I love that your son gets to have that experience. That is so, so cool. I didn't even know you had a son, to be honest. I thought you only had daughters. So that's
No.
fun to know that.
Yeah, son and a daughter.
Oh,
Yeah, my daughter is in high school. My son is at McGill, and he
oh,
started doing agriculture to start with.
very
And
cool.
but now he's getting into some other fields, including computers. He was telling me that he wants to do computer science. He wants to do environmental engineering or whatever. So
He's got
doesn't
a
matter
lot.
what he does. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot of schooling
Enjoy,
ahead of
just
him, but just enjoy. Yeah.
just enjoy, have fun.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, on that note, this has been a fantastic episode. I feel like we all just got so much from everything that you said today. And I feel like everyone listening is going to really benefit from this. So thank you so much for doing this episode with me. And if you are watching right now and you missed the beginning part, 7 Essentials to Transform Your Life. That's what Barun's book is called. And this is what our entire series is based off of. And I will once again leave the link to get this book in the description box for this video. Barun, this has been awesome.
excellent, excellent.
Yes. So we will be back again for another episode every Friday at 3 p.m. You can tune in. And in the meantime, we hope that you have the most fabulous week. And thank you so much for listening. Any final words, Brune?
Well, enjoy your eating, but mindful eating.
Aha. I hope you'll be mindful. All right, guys, take care. See you later.
Okay. Bye for
Bye.
now.